Hey guys, today we're going to be doing some mouse pads. My customer has given me a range of different designs. He wants lots of small ones, some big ones for the whole desk, and we've got a whole bunch of designs to go with it, so we're going to be printing a whole bunch of different ones. That being said, we're going to be using different machines today. First, we're going to be using our laser cutter, our sublimation printer, our double head heat press for multiple pressing, as well as our roll-to-roll heat press for our bigger items. So the first thing we need to do is get into our design and make sure that's all set up for the various machines we need to use. So let's do it. So guys, we're here at our first design, and 10 points for whoever guesses who the customer is. So first thing we need to do is have a look at all the designs that we've been given, and there's only 3 of the smaller kind. So what I need to do firsthand is create a actual border that goes around so that we can create a cut line for our laser. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and use my rectangular rounder tool, and we're going to make it so that it's almost edge to edge with our actual cut lines, the ones that are on the corners, and that's our bleed line. I need to make this black line thicker. You can use black, red, it doesn't really matter. Change it to red so we can see it easier. And once that's done, all I need to do is now just make sure it's centered and it is equal on all 4 sides and not cutting in too far. So that looks really good. Now what we want to do is we want the laser to cut the shape of this rectangle so that we can have a perfect shape. We're going to cut the mouse pad first, and then we're going to heat press it. It makes it for a much easier heat pressing, especially if you're going to use a double head heat press. You want to try and make sure that you do singles at a time and not try and heat press a big roll and then go and laser cut it afterwards, which is what we have to do for our bigger mouse pads. So now that we've got that shape done, we can go ahead and hide this layer, and now we're just left with our border. Now you can either save that as a JPEG and then convert it to a DXF in your own program, but I'm just merely going to drag this across and dump it on my Illustrator. We're going to go and say image trace. We're going to say OK. And then once that's finished, it turns it into a black line, which is perfectly fine for me. I am wanting the inner line, not the outer. So what we're going to do is say expand, and we are going to ungroup it. And we're going to select our white because we don't want that. And now we've got a vectorized rectangle. And as you can see, there's an inner and outer line. We are going to choose in our laser cutting program the inner because the outer has a defect in it. So now that that's done, we can go ahead, select it, file, export as, and we're just going to choose a DXF. What we can keep in mind is that I can use the same rectangle, just make it bigger for our bigger designs, which I'm going to open for you now. We want to try and keep in mind that your rounded edges are easier if you're going to overlock them. The smaller mouse pads we're not going to overlock, the bigger ones we will. So that being said, we'll put this back. We're going to save it as a JPEG, and we're going to open our bigger versions. This process of putting that border around the edge for laser cutting is exactly the same process as doing it for the small one. So we're not going to show you how to do it on the big one, but this is the one that I'm going to pick to use. I really thoroughly love this whole printer, the whole UV printer with the table, the chiller, the bottles of ink. This design is my favorite, so we're going to work on this one as a sample for the customer. Once they're happy, then we'll print and do the rest of them. So that being said, the first thing we need to do for our large mouse pads is to go and print our paper, all the designs that we want, as well as the small ones. From there, I'm going to laser cut the small mouse pads before we heat press. For the bigger ones, we're going to have to heat press on the entire roll because it's such a big thing, we can't do it in our double head heat press. From there, we can go ahead and stitch it, but let's go and print. When it comes to printing a sublimation piece, it is always better to have something that you can do bulk as well as 1 or 2. So for me, I thoroughly enjoy using my 1.6 meter AM sublimation printer because I can get a really good detail and print in bulk, as well as only needing to print one on the occasion that you're doing only one. Versus doing a desktop printer, you can only print so much and so big at one time. So this is purely a win for me. In this case, we are also doing a much larger set of mouse pads. So for me, I would rather then go and heat press it on our roll-to-roll heat press first, and then once I'm finished with that, then I load it into my laser cutter and then cut the edges off, which makes a much better finish for bigger mouse pads. But for smaller ones, it is definitely much easier to use a smaller heat press, and it just so happens I've got a double head heat press, which means I can do a much faster production. Okay, so what I need to do here in RDWorks is create our cut line for both the big and small mouse pad, but I'm going to be doing the small one just to show you. Now earlier I said that there was a bit of a defect on the outer line of our mouse pad, so I want to go ahead, select this, we're going to ungroup it, and once I've ungrouped it, I want to delete the outer line because I want the inner line, which is more accurate and has less problems. Then we're going to quickly just go ahead and make sure our settings are correct. 20 speed, and I'm going to take this to 75%. Change that to 75, 75, 75. Now that that's done, all we need to do now is go ahead and save to U-file, which could be a memory stick, or you can download it directly to your cutter. And there we are. Now we are finished and we can go and laser cut our mouse pad. Now when it comes to laser cutting the mouse pads, I prefer rather laser cutting them myself than buying a pre-cut mouse pad that you get off the shelf from certain suppliers. Now with the AM laser cutter that I've got, the cabinet laser, having the ability to cut my own sizes as well as shapes, you know, whether it be a contoured shape of my hand, for instance, if we were printing a hand. But when you're cutting the edge, it kind of sears the edge so that it doesn't fray as much as buying a mouse pad off the shelf. So I don't like buying mouse pads off the shelf because a lot of the times the edges have already lifted and you've now cut down the amount of time that this mouse pad will last on your desk when you're moving your hand back and forth. That will eventually lift the first layer. Whereas if you laser cut it, you're actually searing the edge of that mouse pad and it prevents it from lifting for a much longer period of time before it actually happens. So being able to laser cut the mouse pad is very, very essential to getting a really good quality mouse pad for the customer. Once we are finished with the roll-to-roll heat press on our big mouse pad, I am going to overlock and hem the edges so that it can be used for a much longer period of time on your desk. Because it's going to be taking up the whole desk mainly, you're going to have a lot of things that are on top of it. You might spill some coffee on it. That way you can roll it up, throw it into a dishwasher or washing machine, wash it, and because the edges are overlocked, it means that the edges will not lift or fray, which means that you'll get a much premium, much better looking mouse pad. So now that we are finished printing on our sublimation printer, we're going to take that paper, cut it up, and then we are going to line it up as best we can. We're going to use our heat resistant tape, which we get from AM as well. Once that is applied, then we can go ahead and heat press and do the bulk on the double head heat press for our smaller mouse pads, which is a much more efficient way than using a roll-to-roll heat press. When you're using the dual head heat press, you've got to make sure that you get your temperature and pressure correct. So we're going to be using a temperature of 200 degrees Celsius, and we're going to be heat pressing for about 90 seconds per mouse pad. Now, I've seen people use a much higher temperature and a lot shorter time span of heat pressing, but this is the settings I prefer, and it needs to take that 90 seconds for that ink to get everything as much as possible out of the paper and onto your mouse pad with best quality. When you're doing the adjustment of your pressure, you just got to adjust on the left hand side where your air adjustment is. You want to try and make sure that if you're having a bulk order like this, do a small little test first. Make sure your pressure is correct before doing everything in one go, and rather having a less pressure is better. The higher the pressure, the more likely you are to get ghosting, as well as that paper gets squished and it slightly moves a little bit, and then you get that ghosted or double print. Or if the pressure is too much, what happens is you get a ink explosion, which leaves you a line that looks like a flash of light has burst off to the side, and that is not something that you're looking for, especially when you're doing such big bulk orders. You want to try and do the pressure correct the first time, and then you know that you're set for the rest of the order. Well guys, now that I've shown you how to make either a very big mouse pad or lots of small ones in a bulk order, as well as using as many machines as possible that you have from AM, it really does make a difference to get something this good. And if you really want to see it in person, head over to AM and you might just get a free sample. And thank you for watching.
"2023 marks the 10th anniversary of AM.CO.za in the South African market. And through that time, we have experienced considerable growth and expansion with the support of our valued customers. To mark our 10th anniversary, we have bought a warehouse at Sunny Rock in East Rand, and we will commence with renovation and construction in 2023. The facility will comprise a massive 2,000 square meter warehouse, 300 square meters of demonstration space, 150 square meters of sales space, and 400 square meters of spare parts storage on the top floor. 550 square meters of showroom space on the middle floor. 400 square meters for Machine.Africa for machine repairs with its own dedicated entrance. And a 250 square meter tea garden and coffee shop for your convenience. Our group now comprises 4 businesses. AM.CO.za is our main business and supplies the machines, spare parts and consumables. Machine.Africa does the installations for our clients and handles on-site and factory repairs. Ambitious Academy ensures that our clients achieve the very best levels of productivity by providing training and certification. And our automated AI-driven online store, Buy This, brings all products online and distributes countrywide. We invite you to be part of this exciting journey as we establish our new headquarters. Watch as the process unfolds and be part of the adventure to meet all of your machinery and productivity needs with this magnificent new facility. AM.CO.za. Achievement matters.